Hey everyone, Ashton here from MuseThemes.com. Let's take a look at our Magnetic Buttons widget from Muse. This widget applies unique and powerful motion effects to buttons. Now as the user approaches a magnetic button, the button itself is pulled toward the cursor. As we all know, calls to action are vital for high-performance websites, and this widget is a great way to draw site visitors to click on important calls to action. As we click through the examples here in the demo, we can see that there are several different styles and several different animations for each button. Some button styles are even intended to be round. Let's jump over to Muse. We're working with our Cooper theme, and down here in the At Your Service section, let's add a button beneath this body text to View Portfolio. So let's jump into our widgets library, drag our widget out onto the page, and we'll place the widget right where we want the button to appear. So the widget itself will be our button. And this also means that if we want to resize the button, we would just need to resize the widget container as well. And if we want several magnetic buttons on one page, we'd simply add more widgets. Now already just dropping this on the page, let's do a browser preview. Now right off the bat, we can see that we have a functioning button already looking awesome. As we approach the button with our cursor, we can see that the text has a rollover effect and the button is pulling towards the cursor. But we want our button to say View Portfolio, and we want it to match the site. So let's style the button up a little bit. Back in Muse, let's open the Widget Options panel. And our first option is Button Style, and there are 6 different button styles. These styles change the animation type and the way the button interacts with the cursor. Some button styles are also intended to create round buttons, but we'll stick with Style 1 for now. Now as we can see, our next couple of options allow us to link the button. Now note here that the link needs to point to a proper URL. This means that we'll need to know the domain of the site and the page name. If your site is not yet published or you don't have a domain yet, you may need to return to the widget later to enter the proper URL. Now we'll leave these settings alone for now since we don't need the button linked for this demo. Next is Button Label, which is the text on the button. So for now we'll put View Portfolio. And Button Target. This allows us to open the link in the same tab or a new browser tab. We'll leave this set to the same tab. Now all that's left are the styling options for the button. Let's open the Common Button Styling section. And the reason this section is called Common Button Styling is because it applies to the common elements of all the button styles. Below this section, we see we have 2 more styling sections that pertain to button style 3 and 5 specifically. Now, I'm not going to go over every single styling setting here because these settings are labeled with their exact purpose and you'll know what to do with them. But let's do some basic styling so that it matches the styling of our entire site. So we'll set the button font and button hover font colors to black. Button font sizing will be 17. Button font family will be Proxima-Nova, since we have that as the headline style on the site already. And we'll go ahead and set letter spacing to 1. And we'll also set font weight to bold. Next, we'll set the button background colors, which is the background and the hover background, to this yellow color that we have on the site, which is FEB633. And finally, we'll set the button border width and hover button border width to 0, since we don't need a border on this button. So this should have the basic styling that we need in order to make the button look great with the rest of this site. So let's give this another browser preview. And everything's looking really good. Now before we go, let's take a look at another button style. I should point out that button styles 2 and 5 are both intended for round buttons. So let's change the button style to button 5. We'll shorten the button label to just Portfolio. And now let's preview in the browser once again. And now we can see we have this weird pancake shape, and that's because our widget container isn't tall enough, so we end up with this smushed circle kind of look. And all we need to do to fix this is to make our widget container equal height and width. So let's set both the height and the width to 120 pixels. And since we're using button style 5, we have some additional styling options in the button style specific styling section. We can use those settings to further customize the style, but we'll leave those alone for right now. Now the last thing we'll do before previewing in the browser is set the resize menu setting for the widget to none. And the reason for this is because Muse will resize the shape of the button in relation to the browser's size, and this is not good for round buttons, as they're unlikely to remain perfectly round at most browser sizes. Okay, so let's preview this in a browser. There we go, and we can see our button is now perfectly round and looking good. Now keep in mind, we've only scratched the surface of button styles and styling on this widget, and I encourage you to explore all the button styles to find the one that's right for your site. And also make sure to look through all of the styling that's available here in the widget. So thanks again for joining me for another tutorial. Again, this is Ashton with MuseThemes.com, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.